Welcome to the Restricted Handling Podcast. This is what's been going on in China in the past 24 hours. Let's start with propaganda and narrative control, because yesterday we talked about tone, and today we're seeing execution. Over the last day, Chinese state media has gone all in on a phrase that's now officially crossed from internet slang into party doctrine: the American kill line. This isn't just edgy rhetoric floating around nationalist corners anymore. It's being pushed by major state-linked outlets, echoed by provincial propaganda departments, and even discussed in top party theory journals. The idea is simple and darkly effective. American poverty is portrayed as a point of no return. One missed paycheck, one medical bill, one layoff, and your life is allegedly over. What's new today isn't the message itself, it's how coordinated and sanctioned it's become. Yesterday, this was something you might have dismissed as online nationalism. Today, it's clearly approved political language. And the timing lines up perfectly with China's own economic unease: slower growth, high youth unemployment, and a growing sense that the old study hard, buy an apartment, everything works out formula is no longer guaranteed. Instead of explaining that, Beijing is doing what it's done for decades: magnify foreign suffering to make domestic pain feel tolerable. Same trick, higher production value. That tightening narrative control is mirrored internally by a very real tightening of discipline. We mentioned yesterday that Xi Jinping was signaling seriousness in his messaging. Now we're seeing follow through. The anti-corruption campaign is ramping up again, and this time it's hitting hard across finance, aviation, state-owned enterprises, universities, and the military. The numbers matter here. 2025 saw a record number of senior officials investigated, including top regulators, airline executives, and multiple senior PLA officers. This isn't about optics. This is about control. State TV is rolling out confession-style documentaries, austerity rules are being re-emphasized, and cadres are being reminded, very publicly, that there is no safe distance from enforcement. When Xi says corruption is an existential threat, he means it literally. In a slowing economy with rising external pressure, loyalty becomes currency. That internal pressure is bleeding outward in familiar ways. Hong Kong's national security cases are grinding towards sentencing, most notably the trial of media tycoon Jimmy Lai. He's already spent years in solitary confinement, and the sentencing range being discussed is severe. Diplomats are watching. Statements are being issued, and Beijing is unmoved. This is not a bargaining chip, it's a signal. At the same time, mainland crackdowns on underground churches, journalists, Tibetan activists, and ethnic communities continue, with picking quarrels charges doing the same quiet work they've always done: silencing without explanation. Now let's shift to the external pressure points, because Beijing is dealing with several at once. On trade, yesterday we talked about fragile truces. Today, that fragility is more visible. President Trump's renewed threat to impose tariffs on countries trading with Iran is a direct pressure move on China, whether Beijing is named or not. China remains Iran's most important economic partner, especially through oil flows routed via small independent refiners that stay conveniently off the books. Official numbers show a decline, but no one in this business believes the real flows have dried up. Beijing's response has been measured but firm. No winners in tariff wars. China will defend its interests. This feels like déjà vu from Trump's first term, and both sides remember how quickly these escalations can spiral. Layered on top of that is the critical minerals fight, which is no longer theoretical. Over the last day, finance ministers from the US, Europe, and Indo-Pacific partners met to talk through ways to reduce dependence on China's rare earth processing dominance. This is about defense supply chains, semiconductors, energy systems, the stuff modern power actually runs on. China still dominates refining, and export controls are now being applied selectively, not universally. That's leverage with precision. At the same time, Washington is clearly looking elsewhere to rebalance, including Venezuela. Beyond oil, Venezuela's bauxite reserves matter because bauxite feeds aluminum and gallium production, materials that show up in radar systems, satellites, hypersonic weapons, and missile defense. The Pentagon is already investing in domestic gallium extraction to reduce reliance on China. Yesterday, this was a strategic idea. Today, money is moving. The Arctic is also sliding further into great power competition. Over the last 24 hours, Beijing issued a pointed warning after Trump again floated the idea of acquiring Greenland. China dusted off its near-Arctic state language and accused Washington of using other countries as cover for its ambitions. Denmark and Greenland pushed back hard. This isn't just about ice, it's about radar coverage, shipping lanes, and long-term resource access. The bluntness of the rhetoric alone is rattling allies. Which brings us to Canada, where the balancing act is getting more uncomfortable. Prime Minister Mark Carney is now in Beijing, the first Canadian leader there in years, trying to reset trade relations while diversifying away from an increasingly unpredictable United States. Ahead of the trip, two government lawmakers quietly cut short a visit to Taiwan to avoid diplomatic awkwardness. Opposition lawmakers stayed. Taiwan made sure to publicly thank Canada for speaking up during recent Chinese military drills. Everyone is watching everyone, and no one wants to blink first. On the military front, China continues to add capability rather than talk about it. A new frigate variant has entered service with a larger gun, improved sensors, better electronic warfare resilience, and enhanced anti-submarine capacity. These aren't headline-grabbing platforms, but they're exactly the ships that fill out escort groups and extend presence. Satellite imagery also shows China's newest aircraft carrier conducting training deployments. This is steady, methodical force building. The U.S. Navy, meanwhile, is staying visible but realistic. An American carrier strike group conducted live fire drills in the South China Sea focused on last-ditch missile defense, basically rehearsing what happens when all the other layers fail. That tells you a lot about how seriously the anti-ship missile threat is being taken. China is also quietly expanding its physical footprint in the South China Sea again, dredging and reinforcing a reef that used to be little more than a navigational afterthought. These outposts aren't about being invulnerable. They're about complicating targeting, soaking up resources, and denying clean options in a crisis, especially one tied to Taiwan. And Taiwan is responding with transparency and signaling. During China's recent justice mission drills, Taipei released visuals outlining layered defense zones extending hundreds of kilometers from the island. The emphasis is early disruption, long-range strikes on staging areas, sea denial, and making any invasion attempt costly immediately. Chinese exercises explicitly practice targeting the systems towards Taiwan highlighted, which tells you this is a live dialogue, not theory. The information war is accelerating alongside the hardware. Over the last day, investigations detailed networks of fake websites impersonating Western media outlets to quietly push pro-Beijing narratives, amplified by coordinated social media accounts. Taiwan's intelligence services say they tracked tens of thousands of fake accounts and millions of disinformation posts last year alone, often synced with PLA drills and cyber intrusions. Meanwhile, China's own security services are warning domestically about leaks of mapping and geographic data, an acknowledgement that information vulnerability cuts both ways. Finally, a reminder that espionage hasn't gone out of style. A former U.S. Navy sailor was sentenced to nearly 17 years for selling ship manuals and operational details to a Chinese intelligence officer he met online. Thousands of pages, real systems, real damage. It's not glamorous, it's not sophisticated, but it works. Thanks so much for listening and for being part of the RH community. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribing, leaving a quick 5-star review, or sharing it with someone you know makes a huge difference. It's how this network will grow. We also publish a daily written intel brief on Substack, where you'll find even deeper coverage of Russia and China, along with insights on the Middle East and the DPRK. This is free for Substack subscribers. Starting January 16th, new Substack subscribers will move to a paid model. If you're already subscribed on Substack before then, nothing changes. You'll keep full access to everything, free forever. New subscribers after January 15th will receive the daily written brief, weekly deep dives on economics, sanctions, and more for a monthly fee. So if you're not on Substack yet, don't worry. Just head to restrictedhandling.com and subscribe now for free and get the content free forever.